the one golden rule of cinema date night. Do your homework. Now, I'm not an eavesdropper. Last night I was at the Tyneside Cinema, sat next to this couple quite awkwardly. The cinema wasn't packed and our row was quite empty, but I was somehow sat next to this couple. It was quite awkward, and I overheard the following conversation. So, what we're seeing here? Oh, it's called Climax. Dunno, I think it's a thriller of some kind. Alright, cool. We only had two options. It was either this or, what was it, The Klansman? What, you mean Black Klansman? Oh, have you already seen it? No, but I've heard of it. So, to be clear, because of what sounds like time issues, maybe Saturday night's the only night they have together, that's date night, that's the one chance, maybe they're flooded with work, they can only see Climax or Black Klansman. Oh. All will become clear across the rest of this video. And that conversation you just heard there, brilliantly acted, keep that in your mind. It's going to come back. Now, I assumed, perhaps naively, that anybody who'd come to see the fifth film from the repertoire of Gaspar, whose previous works have featured out-of-body DMT experiences, has to be seen to be believed, 3D explicit sex, that is just above being porn because it's an art film, murderous butchers, there's that, uncut, long, brutal, sexual and non-sexual violence. I'd assumed that anybody who'd come to see this film was already an initiated fan. That said, Climax has received 4-star reviews from The Telegraph's Robbie Collin, The Observer's Mark Kermode, Empire's Helen O'Hara, The Independent's Jeffrey McNabb, perhaps most importantly of all the UK journalists I just mentioned, Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian, who gave Irreversible 1 star when that came out 16 years ago, and Enter the Void gave that 5 stars. What a journey. To get an understanding of who Gaspar Noé is, the filmmaker of Climax, what he stands for, who he is, what he does, here's a quote. So Zan Brooks spoke to Noé for The Guardian at Cannes in May when this film premiered, and this is the passage. So Zan writes, he wants to know how many people walked out of Climax. I tell him I spotted maybe 6 or 7. And Gaspar Noé's quote is this: "Oh man, no, he groans, as if this is the worst news in the world. I usually have 25% of the audience walking out." That's who he is. Noé is a provocateur, and accusations that he simply enjoys showing everyone how his mind works and the horrific things that manifest inside it. Those accusations are not too far from the truth, generally speaking. And that's because I would consider him to be a part of a group of filmmakers who I would consider to be trolls. And not in a bad way. When I sat down for Climax, I knew what I was getting myself in for. His films have been on the list. You know, the never-ending list of films you want to watch but you just haven't got time for. They've been on the list for a while, so Irreversible, even though I'd heard such horrible things about that scene in the tunnel. Enter the Void sounded interesting, even though it's like nearly 3 hours long, never had the time for it. And I suppose I was always putting it off because it's not like a lovely, shiny blockbuster film that gets you excited. It's pretty brutal, and once you've heard about what happens in the films, I mean, you're not exactly instantly excited to go and, like, seek them out and be like, woo, can't wait for Enter the Void. So last weekend, the streaming platform Mubi, M-U-B-I, they put Irreversible up, and then they put Enter the Void up. So how they work is they put a film on every single day. So for a month you have like 30 films to watch. They take them off every day and they put new ones every day. It's brilliant, really good. And they put loads of interesting foreign stuff on, and because Climax came out, they put those 2 films up. So I thought, right, now's the time. I've got some free time to spare. I want to see Climax. Let's do it. Let's plunge into Irreversible with that scene and Enter the Void with all of that. And they're both very interesting. They're both very shocking in their own ways. But when you remember who's made the films and what kind of form he has, suddenly it's not quite as bad. Let's go back to Zan Brooks from The Guardian. From the same article I referenced before, I'll put a link in the description. That's like a real YouTuber thing, isn't it? This is like a proper YouTube video, this. Zan Brooks from The Guardian, he wrote, the Franco-Argentine director has grown used to outraging audiences, driving punters from the theatre like a shepherd chasing his flock. But here's the thing. Climax is promptly greeted by almost uniformly glowing reviews. Critics are claiming it's his most fully realised, purely exciting film to date. And now, perhaps for the first time in his life, it's Noah's turn to be outraged. He says, "I must be doing something wrong. I have to take a long holiday and rethink my career." So, pre-climax, I was sat in my seat with a massive shit-eating grin on my face, like a kid at Christmas, anticipating what Gaspar was going to put down my chimney this year. So I had seen reviews on Letterboxd, which is a brilliant social media site for films, highly recommended. Reviews that had compared Climax to Mother favourably, saying that Climax makes Mother look like My Little Pony. And I was like, well, because Mother, this time last year, funnily enough, it might be this weekend last year, or maybe I'm not sure, but Mother, the Aronofsky film, to briefly summarise, everything just goes to hell in a handcart. Everything just goes really badly wrong, and it's horrible because it just comes so quickly. Everything happens so fast. It goes from one extreme to another, to another, to another, to another, and then it stops for a bit and you go, maybe that's it, and then another thing comes and it just goes even worse from there. It's horrible. And it gave me my first ever panic attack, or so I believe. Because I've never had one before, I don't know what they're supposed to feel like. I imagine they're probably really horrible, and if it wasn't a panic attack and I've trivialised what you may have gone through, I apologise. But to me, I was very panicked. It felt like an attack. I couldn't breathe. I did want to leave, but at the same time, because it was so compelling, I was just glued to it. So much so that I bought the damn thing on Blu-ray as soon as I could. I bought it on Mother's Day. And naturally I showed my actual mother, just because I'm that kind of lovely son who likes to give my mum panic attacks. And we both loved it. I mean, again, exact same feeling. Felt like I was going to hyperventilate and die. But afterwards I was just like, brilliant, love it, hilarious. And it's got to be one of the more memorable cinema experiences. One, because of the panic attack thing, which is traumatic but kind of fun at the same time. That's why I'm kind of sceptical about using panic attack as a term. So it was a memorable experience, obviously because of the potential panic attack thing. But also because of the reaction of my fellow cinema goers. So as we're leaving the auditorium, I'm obviously dying with laughter because I've come out the side of a really traumatic experience, and I've realised that I really enjoyed the film, and it's a film that I'm going to revisit from time to time. And I have fellow cinema goers, some left during some of the more traumatic parts of the film. I think some were so bored by the first half because it can be quite tedious if you're not fully alert to what's going to happen. And the vibe of what I could hear because I was trying, if I've loved a film that I know is going to rub people up the wrong way, I always try and keep my ears out and see what people are going to say. And it was nothing of any substance really. It wasn't terribly exciting. It was just kind of like, oh, that was shit. And it was in that voice as well. That wasn't me being, that's how they did sound, sorry. And to go back to the My Little Pony statements, whether I agree with those statements or not is yet to be seen, because I've only seen it once, and it was yesterday, it was last night, so my brain's still thinking about it, which is good. But I do think Mother gave me a stronger reaction because I think it played on some of my deepest, darkest fears. Fears about being trapped, fears about being overwhelmed by a crowd or something. And of course, fears about being at the centre of an apocalypse, which is just terrifying, obviously. But I think the fact that Climax is like a shared experience kind of makes it worse. Whereas in Mother, it's just Jennifer Lawrence. She's the one who's in the turmoil. Everybody else is just kind of piling on. Whereas Climax, everyone's kind of in the same boat. Everyone's been spiked by the same sangria, laced with LSD. Everyone's in the same position. So there's multiple horrors occurring simultaneously, which is kind of horrible because they all layer on top of each other, like Mother, but with different people in a sort of cacophony of misery. And of course there's the pulsating music. A lot of the music is diegetic, so it's coming from the actual room. There's somebody spinning turntables with sort of dance music on, so you've got this sort of pulsating beat that goes through the whole thing. A lot of it's lit by natural light, so single colour lights. A lot of it's in one take as well, so there's no cuts to kind of reprieve. Scenes drag on for a long time, much like Irreversible. Scenes kind of go on for way longer than they should, and you're just waiting for them to cut away, and they never do, so it's quite agonising there as well. There's a lot of dizzying camera movements, so for large parts of the film, the camera is kind of going like that. So it's upside down and it's turning and stuff. Because it's dancing as well, they're all kind of contorting, so they've got these sort of, I don't know what they call body popping people who are all Ooh. So they're all doing that, and because they're all like under the influence of, you know, hallucinogenic drugs, they're all kind of doing that, but in an even more trippy way. There's a lot of screaming, a lot of it, particularly from one person who we'll get to later on in the video. But here's the thing, because I did my homework, I saw it all through a different lens. Ultimately, Climax is a comedy. Who knew? No way the director is not a character in the film, but he is present in the whole film more than any other film. Like you hear of the auteur theory where directors have their unique style, and it's like you're watching a Scorsese film or a Spielberg film. You're very much watching a Gaspar Noé film, and you're aware of it the whole time because his sort of dark, cackling humour is present through the whole thing. I mean, for one, the fact that at the very beginning of the film, the credits roll in reverse. So there's that. So you watch this one opening scene, and then the credits roll, and I wouldn't be surprised if some in the audience were like, oh, well, is that it? Was that like the Pixar short at the beginning or something? And then, of course, there's the fact that, I hope this isn't a spoiler, is that halfway through the film, he rolls the opening credits as if to say, right, well, that was the first half. That wasn't anything. Now the film's beginning. And see, this is the thing, right? If you're not up with the Gaspar Noé knowledge and the comedy and stuff, you don't understand how his films work, then that'll be confusing. But for me, I was laughing, and it's just credits. It's like it wasn't in like a funny font. It was in, you know, typically Gaspar Noé fonts, but it wasn't like funny. It was just the fact that it was there, and this is what we're going to get onto. There's other things as well. The allegories about birth and death. You know, they have these title cards that come up. That's kind of a theme through all of Gaspar Noé's work. He has these title cards that make these sort of quite prophetic statements, and they come up in Climax in various places, and they will just be random sentences to some people, but to someone like me who understands it, and that sounds so... To someone like me, oh God. To someone... No, it doesn't... No. Okay, when I saw this film, the cards came up and I thought, that's funny. It is just funny because I know what he does. Even things like going down corridors that are like, the corridor going towards where they're going is red lit and the one after that is green lit, and it's all, you know, colour theory, all that type of stuff. Even those little things there, they're funny because you're aware. And this is probably the most important point of them all. You've heard of something called Chekhov's gun. Now, Chekhov's gun, according to the official definition I found online, is a dramatic principle that states every element in a story must be necessary and irrelevant elements should be removed. Elements should not appear to make false promises by never coming into play. So basically, that's like the quote from Chekhov himself, Anton Chekhov, who wrote this book of like writing advice. He says, if in the first act you've hung a pistol on the wall, then in the following one it should be fired. That sort of comes into Climax, but in a different way. Something I like to call Chekhov's child. Now, there's a single mother in the group, and she's brought her child to the rehearsal and then the subsequent party, and Chekhov's child. I wouldn't say any more than that, but it's a Gaspar Noé film. What do you think is going to happen? I've always been really interested by Chekhov's gun, and it's even in 838, the drama series I made this year, which is still online. It's never going to go offline, probably. I mean, literally, Chekhov's gun does come in because in the last episode, there is a gun, and lo and behold, it is fired, and I won't say any more than that. And while we're on the subject, I always said that 838, the thing I made, was always inspired by Aronofsky. Mother, especially Mother, because the way it transcends, the way it descends at the end. But actually, now that I've seen 3 Gaspar Noé films, I'm sort of thinking that indirectly, they're all a bit like that, and it's You'll be pleased to know it's given me lots of ideas for my next bit of work, which is going to be even more horrible than 838. Oh. So we've mentioned Aronofsky, we've mentioned in great detail Gaspar Noé. They tie together because I would consider them part of an unofficial club that I have affectionately called the Trolls Club. Now, I think Gaspar Noé would take great pleasure in being called part of the Trolls Club because, I mean, just read any interview with Gaspar and see what he says about his own work and how he feels about misery and bleakness. That he's definitely a troll. Aronofsky, it's kind of more debatable because I feel like the work he makes is actually serious. It's just people like me who pick them apart and think that's hilarious. going back to Mother, many people have said that it's Jennifer Lawrence's first film where it isn't a Jennifer Lawrence movie. You know, it's like, it's very much an Aronofsky film and she's just an actress within it. Funny enough, they dated. I don't know what happened there. Mother's kind of remarkable because it's like totally the opposite of Katniss Everdeen, as if she's kind of done it as a point to prove, to totally cast off Katniss, because she's the opposite completely. She's like a meek and kind of like undermined, very uncomfortable. She's repressed. She's probably depressed. The trolling nature of the film, in my mind, comes from not just how horrific and over the top it gets, but kind of how open to interpretation the film is. So the sort of party line from Aronofsky and the filmmakers, that they've sort of said it's about Mother Earth. So Jennifer Lawrence is Mother Earth, and the way the film kind of breaks down is his way of saying that that's what we're doing to the planet, we're, you know, abusing Mother Earth type thing. But of course, the fact that the mother and the him and all the lowercase letters in the credits and stuff, allegory for religion as well. But the way I read it, it's probably the most surface level is that, like, it's the satire on celebrity. So Javier Bardem being a really famous writer, and everyone's pressuring him to make the next big thing, and how much it pushes him and how much it tips him over the edge, and it brings everyone in his circle with it. So there's that as well. But that to me, I would consider that a small element of trolling when you've got a film that's so open to interpretation that you're going to get people talking forever and ever and ever, and you're always going to be in their minds, prodding, poking and playing with them. That's what I think. So, other filmmakers in the Troll Club list. I'd say Danish director Lars von Trier, who made Nymphomaniac, Antichrist, which I've not seen either, but I don't want to. And Melancholia, which I haven't seen either. Lars von Trier is just, he's a step too far for me. Nymphomaniac is essentially just porn with a loose story fitted between it all. I don't like Lars von Trier particularly. But he did say this.
What can I say? I understand Hitler.
Whether he actually means that or not, I don't know. But it proves that he's just a massive troll. So the connection between von Trier and Gaspar Noé is quite obvious. They had films that both played at Cannes this year, so Climax for Noé and The House That Jack Built for von Trier, which comes out later this year. I'm not sure if I'll go and see that, to be honest. I don't know. But Noé made some comments about The House That Jack Built when he saw it at Cannes. Can you take a guess what he might have said? Well, here you go. He told Vulture, "I thought it was so funny. Lars von Trier has a very cold humour, but I enjoyed it so much. It's like a Todd Solondz movie, so dark." While we're there, let's put Todd Solondz in the Trolls Club. He made a film called Wiener Dog. It's not a cute and cuddly kids film. It has a wiener dog in it, but let's just say Chekhov's dog. And back to Noé, he said all the sadistic scenes were so funny that people were staring at me because I couldn't stop laughing. That's kind of like me. Oh, that's kind of like what I was doing when I saw Climax. Oh dear. I won't say what the scenes that he's referring to are. I do know what they are, I think, and I'm not going to say them because it's a spoiler. And other trolls in the Trolls Club. Yorgos Lanthimos, who's probably best known for The Lobster in this country, but he did make fame in his native Greece for Dogtooth and other films as well, and of course The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Lanthimos' most obvious comedic film was The Lobster. The comedy is easier to spot, but it's still very bleak. And this being his first English film, it was a lot of our first taste to what to expect from Yorgos. The kind of stilted dialogue, and the awkward exchanges, and the kind of frontal sex things that happen. And then his previous film, Dogtooth, which is a lot more like Room, the Academy Award nominated film with Brie Larson, than you might expect. That contains some of his most visceral and like fleshy stuff. So let's just say dumbbell, VHS tapes glued to hands, kidnapping a car boot, and lots of incest. That's Dogtooth. So all of that, but like the absurdity of the scenarios and like the detached delivery of this like delusional dialogue. That was a lot of D's. That's what elevates it from being like a brutal exploitative film to like a biting satire, which is what it is in the end. His most recent film, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, is probably the least obvious comedy film he's made. Like, it doesn't jump out as being hilarious. You know, this is his fifth film now. We, as in people who like Lanthimos a lot, we understand what he does and we know what to expect. And his signature style is like a joke in and of itself. Like for me, when I saw The Killing of a Sacred Deer, it starts with a black screen, totally black, and this orchestral music comes in, a bit like, I suppose, like 2001 Kubrick, with that like sort of interlude at the beginning. It's the same thing but with Lanthimos. And because I know what he does and how he uses music and how he uses silence and how he uses those breaks, I understood that that was a joke and that was funny, so I laughed. And of course nobody else did, because they all just kind of like, oh, when's this film going to start? But I'm like, that's joke one, and it hasn't even properly got going yet. That's what he does. Who else? Nicholas Winding Refn, ha 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 ha. Another Dane. He hit international success in his homeland of Denmark with the Pusher trilogy, with Mads Mikkelsen, very good. Then he lured the audiences in with Drive. Everyone was like really buzzing about him. Everyone was like, oh, where's this guy been? Wow, isn't that good? And Drive was a big hit. War Gosling, obviously. And then he sucker punched all of us with films like Only God Forgives and The Neon Demon. Only God Forgives went down really badly because it was just after Drive. It was the follow-up immediately, and everyone had big expectations, big hopes for it, and it rubbed people up the wrong way. A lot of people. And it's kind of sort of easy to see why. Look at the poster and stuff. Neon colours, much like the colours in Drive. Ryan Gosling, it even says Drive. Everyone was expecting Drive 2, and what they got was something totally different. Naturally, everyone got disappointed because Gosling's character here, 1, had a name called Julian, 2, didn't say much, only had 17 lines of dialogue, and 3, does something unspeakable with his fingers to his own mother. How do I know it was disliked? Well, I was one of them. I first saw it in 2013 or 2014, whenever it came out on DVD or Blu-ray, because I borrowed it off my friend Rebecca, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I think I expected Drive 2. This was back when I was not in on the joke. I had just seen Drive. I wasn't aware of what Refn was doing, because Drive was... I love it, but it was straightforward compared to what he's doing now. Tonally, anyway. But of course, Neon Demon 2016, that came out. That's when it all clicked, because I saw that, and it's hilarious. You can't take it seriously. And that's when I realised that Only God Forgives is equally as trolly as that. So I thought maybe, if I hated it so much back then, but I love Neon Demon, they can't be too far apart. Maybe I'll revisit it and see what it's like. And that was 2 years ago. Only very recently did I finally get the time to sit down and watch it, because it's always been in my mind. I've always been like, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. A few weeks ago I sat down and watched it right in the middle of doing my 8:38 work. I guess I needed some inspiration, something warped, to warp the mind further. And lo and behold, it's a bit of a misunderstood masterpiece. So it's obvious. Nicholas Winding Refn is a Gaspar Noé-shaped troll. He's often accused of style over substance, and I don't agree, because these films do have substance, definitely. But the style that his films have is so rich and so like nourishing and tasty that like I'm 100% fine with style over substance for Refn. And to prove the whole troll thing, the Neon Demon has a scene with Jenna Malone and a corpse that everyone's seen and talked about now. He gets off on that. He does. So Refn makes these misunderstood masterpieces, and this is going to sound pretentious, but you have to be on the joke to really appreciate all of it. Another major contributor to the Troll Club is Harmony Korine, who made Oh, it's just here. He made Spring Breakers. I've got a lot of Blu-rays and stuff. And he's in the Troll Club for reasons that should be obvious if you were one of the ones... And I saw a lot on my Facebook who were like, oh, I want to see Spring Breakers. It looks like Project X meets like all my favourite Disney Channel stars who've all grown up and gone wild. What appeared on the surface to be Korine's ascent into the mainstream was actually a really super glossy and hyper-realised art film that has James Franco just going, Spring Break, Spring Break, over and over again, like for the whole last 50 minutes. It's perfect. It shouldn't be a surprise that as a fellow troll, I love Spring Breakers. Fun fact, at the very end it has one of Ellie Goulding's good songs from the very beginning of her career before it went... I mean, Korine, been warping minds for years. He made Gummo, he made the enigmatic, troubling Trash Humpers, and he wrote Larry Clark's Hedonistic Kids. So Korine very much deserves a place in the Hall of Fame for Troll Club. If you're going to go back even further for Hall of Famers for the Troll Club, I would suggest Paul Verhoeven for Showgirls. I would say Paul Schrader for The Canyons, the Lindsay Lohan and James Dean film, arguably. And to some extent, First Reformed, which came out recently and was very good, but again had the same sort of fit of laughter as I have with all these films at the end. Couples around me were like, "What is that?" And I'm just like, I love it. I love it. It's like a little pastime going to films I know people are going to hate and laugh at them. I'm a nice person, really, I promise. Alejandro Jodorowsky, who made The Holy Mountain, and shouldn't be surprised that he served as a inspiration for Winding Refn. And even further back, Stanley Kubrick, A Clockwork Orange, and I would argue to some extent Eyes Wide Shut, because there's no way a film that long and that boring is really about what it is. It's got to be a troll. It has to be. That's his final mark on the world. Well done, Stanley. I see you. I see you. For a really obscure one, I'm going to chuck in Miroslav Slaboshpitsky, who made The Tribe. It's a Ukrainian film. It has an entirely deaf cast with no subtitles. You have to just sort of guess what they're saying, but you can sort of infer it. All speaking in sign language, no subtitles, and some really graphic violence and other horrible things. I'm aware that this sounds really snobbish, and I don't want to exclude anybody from seeing these kind of films just because they aren't like an expert. I mean, I'm not an expert. I've seen some of the films, and I've sort of connected dots and I've made my own opinions about them. So I'm not an expert, and you don't have to be, because I want cinema to be as open and inclusive as possible. I really want people to see films like this, like Climax, which are, you know, a bit odd and make you think and make you horrified. Let's face it, a lot of modern horror films are rubbish. I avoid them, like, I give them a really wide berth. I would give an example now, but I haven't seen one for ages because I don't go and see them. I don't have time in my life to go and see horror films that I know are going to be rubbish. I suppose recently we had Hereditary, which I know some people dislike, but I did like. Maybe because I thought it was a bit trolly as well. If we're gonna go for like new intake for the Troll Club, maybe Ari Aster, who made it, because that entire last bit has clearly got people talking. It feels out of place, but nothing's accidental in films. Nothing's an accident. I fully think that was dartboard. Got it. Welcome. I really want people to see films like this. I try and recommend these kind of films to friends. If I know they can handle it, I will say you need to go and see the new Lanthimos film, or you need. I might recommend Climax to a friend or two. I might. I know it's a hard sell, but I think it's fun. We are incredibly lucky to have an independent cinema here in the Northeast that shows indie films, shows foreign films, shows kind of artistic films, and it's really exciting when you have a screening room like the one I was in last night, where it's, you know, quite busy. I mean, it was Saturday night, but it was fairly busy. And for something that's quite a hard sell, that's quite niche, that's cool. That's good. It means people are interested. The thing is, I do admittedly take a lot of pleasure in watching the baffled reactions of people who've seen films they don't understand. Not that I'm better than them or anything, just because it's such a pure thing. It's just watching the bemusement and seeing the anger and the frustration. Because the thing is, like, realistically, people who saw Mother and didn't like it and saw Climax and didn't like it, they will forget about it. It won't leave an imprint on their lives. They will just dismiss it and, like, move on. But in all seriousness, I would love to have a conversation with somebody who's seen a film like Climax and us to have similar opinion, similar wavelength. Not same opinion, because I think if everyone had the same opinion, we all know what would happen. It would just be an echo chamber, and film criticism would be buried. Like, there'd be no point, because everyone would be like, oh yeah, I agree. You need conflict, you need confrontation, you need a diverse range from different voices as well. So here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that to fully appreciate a film of this kind, you have to, like, watch the filmmaker's entire back catalogue. You haven't got to, like, penetrate their mind and know what they feel and how they think and what they have for breakfast or whatever. But I will say this. Climax has a trailer. I think it was the first trailer that came out. It's a minute long, literally a minute long. And, I mean, it's so plain. Gaspar's kind of almost inviting you to come in. It's showing you what's in the film. It's like literally on the words on the screen. It says like sangria, party, vinyl, disco lights, and it's all that kind of stuff. Obviously cut with footage that's, you know, but you get a good feel for what the film is. You get a good feel for what the tone of the film is. So it's a really good trailer. Takes literally a minute. If you're thinking of seeing Climax, or I don't know. Just watch the trailer, and that's how you'll get a feel if you're going to enjoy it or not. Tell you what, I'll leave a link in the description. Hi folks, I need like ukulele music, don't I, to get a real feel for this YouTube lark. Here's what I'm saying. You need to do some background research before you go and see a film at the cinema. If you're at home, you've got the luxury of a DVD case. You can look at the back and you can see what it looks like and the colours and the poster and stuff. That's all good. But if you come in completely blind and you have literally no idea what's going to happen when the BBFC card goes off and the production logos start and the film begins, if you're in the position you know nothing, then I'd be concerned as a film goer. Unless you're in Spain, like I was last week with my friend Nathan, and we had some time to kill on the last day. I certainly had sort of run out of energy. I was just like, right, I just want to get in the airport and go home, because I don't like being away from home too long. I'm very homesick. I'm a home proud lad. So we found ourselves with a few hours to spare before the flight left. So we went to a cinema in Barcelona, and see, I'd heard from somebody that they'd been to see a film in Rotterdam, and they saw a film in English with the Dutch subtitles, and I thought, well, hopefully it'll be the same in Barcelona. Of course it wasn't. I realised about half an hour before when I went to book on the site, and it had VSP, as in version Spanish, and I thought, well, you know what, it's €4. We've got time to kill. I've seen enough buildings now, and I've drank enough San Miguel. Let's just go and see this film. And it was The Predator, or as they call it, Predator, or as I would have called it, El Predatore. Racism. And we did hold out some hope that it would be in English with Spanish subtitles. Of course it wasn't, it was all in Spanish. Luckily, it was rubbish. And it was the kind of film that you haven't got to know what they're saying to understand what's happening. I literally checked Wikipedia afterwards and looked at the plot synopsis, got the whole goddamn thing right. So anyway, back to research. So it could be a trailer. I know that some people get iffy about trailers, saying they're full of spoilers and stuff, and it's a bit of a... I would say that if you can, find a teaser trailer, which doesn't give any plot away, it just kind of gives you a feel of who's in it and what the tone's like. That's what I would suggest. Perhaps it's an interview with the filmmaker or a member of the cast. They're often obligated to promote the film with no spoilers. They just have to sort of talk and promote it in a jovial way, so they're normally quite safe. I'd say one of the more reliable interviewers, or the most reliable interviewer, is Simon Mayo on the film review show on 5 Live. His interviews are always really good, ask really good questions, no spoilers guaranteed. And on that subject, I would say reviews are good as well, from a reputable source, not Rotten Tomatoes. That isn't reviews. The score, like 48%, that isn't a review. That's a collection of reviews that have been aggregated into a number. Doesn't mean anything, ignore it. I'd say any of the critics are listed at the top of the show. I've not been on the radio for a while. On the top of this video, so like Kermode, Bradshaw, all them, they're all good and normally don't spoil anything. If you really have the time to spare, and don't put yourself out, if you've got like Amazon Prime Video or whatever, maybe see if the filmmaker has any films on there that you can rent. YouTube do rentals as well, normally like £3. So a Netflix as well, obviously if you have a Netflix account, see if they've got any of their films on there. And then you're not going out of pocket too much. You know, you've only paid a couple of quid, you've decided if you like the tone of it or not, and that's normally a good barometer. However you do your research, do some. It may take just 10 minutes, and it's the difference between you seeing something you don't like Climax, which can be, you know, a bit of a difficult watch, a very difficult watch, or something that's quite, you know, universal, quite gripping, like Black Klansman. Which brings me to the conclusion of this video. A common theme with these filmmakers is that their films are very easily dismissed. As I said just a little while ago, people come out of these films and they dismiss them and they forget and they move on. They never think about them ever again. They don't need to. It's out of their minds. So picture the face that I had when I left the screening of Mother last year. The big smile on my face watching those fellow film goers as they were so miserable and happy, and I'm kind of like... And that brings us nicely to Climax, the film I saw last night. That couple from the beginning of this video, let's go back to them. Now, I'm not inside their minds, so I don't know for certain, but they didn't look very happy. They looked pretty baffled, and it's safe to say date night was not a success this week. They couldn't have got out there fast enough. However, they did last longer than the couple sat in front of us, who left about 15 minutes before the end. And this is really bad. I did sort of audibly laugh at them. Now I know the code of conduct, you don't make any noise and don't, draw attention or anything, but as they left, and I was just like, I was in my element, it was going through a really particularly nasty patch of the film, and I was just like, as they went. Oh, I'm part of the problem. I'm a troll. I'm a troll. There's no two ways about it. I'm a troll. So this couple sat next to me. I listened very keenly, just praying that it would be something really good. Of more substance than just like, oh, that was shit. I wanted it to be a really good, like, bit of gold. I was not disappointed. So that exchange at the start of the video, rewind if you have to, then come back just to remember what they said. As the film was reaching its denouement, in French, as the colours started fading to white as it does in the film, and as the music of the film kind of ramps up to its peak in anticipation of the title card climax, the boyfriend turns to girlfriend and sort of shrugs. His body language is kind of like, and he just said one word. So dismissively, he said one word, and it was thriller. Somewhere earlier in the video I mentioned the BBFC title cards. I find them really problematic. They've got really mixed feelings. They're good because they say what the film is and what it's, but they're really bad because it's a bit of silence before the film starts, and you always get the couple or the people who see what it says in the little thing next to the 18 or the 15, and they go like, oh, it's got strong violence in this one, or they go like, oh, it's got a rape scene in this one. Possibly the worst ever BBFC title card is When We Saw the Tribe that I mentioned, and all I'll say is Chekhov's abortion. Right, not this be it.